Most people walk through this world carrying a weapon they never learned to use. Not a sword, not money, not influence. Something far more powerful than all of those combined. And the tragedy, the real, silent tragedy is this. They carry it every single day, and they keep putting it down. They keep throwing it away. They keep handing it to others who do not deserve it, who have not earned it, who will never appreciate what they were just given. You were given this weapon at birth. Every human being was. And yet, almost no one on this earth has ever been taught how to use it properly. Think back. Think back to the last time someone disrespected you and you responded immediately. Think back to the last time someone challenged you, provoked you, pushed your boundaries, and you felt that heat rise inside your chest, that burning need to speak, to defend, to respond, to explain yourself. You answered, you reacted, you spoke. And in that exact moment, without knowing it, without feeling it, without any visible sign, you lost something. Not an argument, not a debate, not a conversation. You lost power, real power, quiet power. The kind of power that cannot be seen but can always be felt. Every time you explained yourself, when no explanation was required, you gave something away. Every time you filled a silence that deserved to remain empty, you exposed something. Every time you reacted, when restraint was the only correct response, you handed control of the moment to someone else, and they took it gladly. This is not your fault. You were never taught this. No school teaches it. No parent explains it. No institution trains you in the art of silence. Society, in fact, trains you in the opposite direction. Society rewards those who speak quickly, respond boldly, express loudly. Social media celebrates instant reaction. Culture applauds emotional expression. But power, true, lasting, undeniable power, has always lived in the opposite direction. It has always lived in the pause. It has always lived in the restraint. It has always lived in the silence. And every single day that you did not understand this, you were slowly, quietly, invisibly bleeding authority, bleeding control, bleeding the kind of commanding presence that makes other people respect you before you even open your mouth. You have been walking through life unarmed, not because the weapon was taken from you, but because no one ever taught you it was there. Tonight, that changes. Tonight, you will understand something that most people will spend their entire lives never grasping. Something that the greatest rulers, the most powerful strategists, the most commanding individuals in history all understood deeply and practiced relentlessly. Tonight, you will learn why silence is not empty. Silence is not weakness. Silence is not absence. Silence, when used with intention, with discipline, with precision, is the deadliest weapon a human being can carry. And you have been carrying it without ever knowing how to unsheath it. Not anymore. The moment you understand what you are about to learn, you will never look at a conversation the same way again. You will never look at a reaction the same way. You will never look at your own voice, your own words, your own expressions the same way. Because you will finally understand what they cost. And you will finally understand what your silence is worth. There is something you possess that most people will never fully understand. It is not visible. It cannot be touched. It cannot be bought at any price or transferred through any transaction. And yet it is the most valuable resource a human being can own. It is your silence. Not the silence of the passive, not the silence of the defeated, not the empty, helpless silence of someone who has nothing to say. The silence of the powerful. The silence of the controlled. The silence of someone who has something to say and chooses not to say it. That distinction is everything. There is a profound difference between a person who is silent because they are empty and a person who is silent because they are full of awareness, full of observation, full of strategic thinking that they have chosen not to reveal. One silence signals weakness, the other signals danger, and the world responds to both differently. Think about the individuals you have encountered in your life who commanded the most respect, not the loudest ones, not the most expressive ones, not the ones who filled every space with their words and emotions and reactions. Think about the ones who made you feel somehow that they always knew more than they were saying, the ones who watched more than they spoke, the ones whose few words carried enormous weight precisely because they were selective about which words they chose to release. That weight, that undeniable gravitational pull came from their silence. Their silence created mystery. Their silence created uncertainty in those around them. Their silence communicated something that words never could, that they were in complete control of themselves, and therefore, potentially, in complete control of you. Most people do the opposite. Most people spend their silence as if it were worthless. They fill every pause. They explain every decision. They justify every action. They respond to every provocation. They speak when spoken to. They react when challenged. They express when emotional. And in doing so, they give away a level of information about themselves that a strategist would never surrender willingly. Because every word you speak is information. Every reaction you display is data. Every explanation you offer is a map of your interior world, your insecurities, your values, your triggers, your weaknesses. And the person who receives that map now has access to something you never intended to give them. When you speak without restraint, you are not communicating, you are surrendering. When you react without discipline, you are not expressing strength, you are confessing vulnerability. When you fill every silence out of discomfort, you are not being genuine. You are being controlled by your own discomfort, which means you have handed the controls of the situation to whoever or whatever created that discomfort. Your silence is currency. Every time you speak unnecessarily, you spend it. Every time you react emotionally, you spend it. Every time you explain yourself when no explanation was asked for, you spend it. And like all currency, once spent carelessly, it loses its value. But when you protect it, when you choose your silences deliberately, when you allow others to sit in the discomfort of your quiet, when you speak only when your words serve a strategic purpose, the value of that silence compounds. It becomes presence. It becomes authority. It becomes the kind of power that does not need to announce itself, because everyone in the room can already feel it. Guard your silence. It is worth more than anything else you carry. More than 500 years ago, a man sat in a small study in Florence, Italy, writing by candlelight. His name was Niccolò Machiavelli. He had served in governments. He had advised rulers. He had watched empires rise with breathtaking speed and collapse with devastating finality. He had observed, at close range, what separated the men who held power from the men who lost it. What separated those who commanded entire nations from those who could not even command a room. And what he discovered, what he wrote about with unsettling clarity, was not about armies or wealth or bloodlines or political position. It was about behavior. It was about psychology. It was about the way that power is communicated through the body, through presence, through expression, through restraint. Machiavelli watched rulers who spoke too much and lost the confidence of their courts. He watched rulers who expressed emotion freely and watched their enemies exploit every revealed, feeling like a blade finding an open wound. He watched advisors who explained too much, justified too often, reacted too quickly, and he watched how those around them learned to predict them, manipulate them, and ultimately dominate them. And then he watched the others, the ones who spoke selectively, who revealed nothing they did not intend to reveal, who sat in silence when others expected speech, who watched when others performed, who moved with deliberate stillness while the world scrambled noisily around them. These were the ones who lasted. These were the ones who accumulated power quietly, steadily, without spectacle, and who held it with a grip that could not be broken, because it could not be understood. In The Prince, Machiavelli wrote not as a moralist, but as an observer. He was not telling rulers what was right or wrong. He was telling them what was real. And what was real, what has always been real, is this. The world does not respond to what you feel. It responds to what you project. It does not care what is happening inside you. It reads only what you allow it to see. And silence, disciplined, intentional, weaponized silence controls what the world sees. A prince who cannot control his tongue cannot control his kingdom. A man who cannot control his reactions cannot control his circumstances. A person who speaks in every moment of discomfort has already revealed that discomfort, and whoever caused it, now knows exactly how to cause it again. Machiavelli understood that power is a perception game before it is anything else. Before armies, before resources, before strategy, people must first perceive you as powerful. They must first feel, in your presence, a weight that commands their respect before a single word has been exchanged. And that weight, that psychological gravity, cannot be manufactured through speech. It can only be built through restraint, through presence, through the quiet certainty of someone who does not need to explain himself, because his silence already says everything that needs to be said. This principle was old when Machiavelli wrote about it. He was not inventing it. He was documenting a pattern he observed across centuries of human power dynamics, a pattern that has never changed, Because human psychology has never changed. The rulers who fell were always the ones who showed too much. The rulers who endured were always the ones who revealed too little. 500 years have passed since Machiavelli held that pen. The world has transformed beyond recognition, and this principle has not moved a single inch. Power does not come from the one who speaks most. Power does not come from the loudest voice in the room, the most articulate argument, the fastest response, the most emotional expression. These things may earn attention, they may earn admiration in certain contexts, but they do not earn the deep, sustained, almost involuntary respect that true power commands. Power comes from restraint. Power comes from the ability to hold your words, to hold your reactions, to hold your expressions when everything inside you is pushing to release them. This is the discipline that most people will never develop, not because they are incapable of it, but because nothing in their environment ever demanded it of them. Because they grew up in a world that rewarded immediate expression. Because they were taught that speaking up is confidence and staying silent is passivity. But watch what actually happens in the rooms where power lives. Watch the dynamic between someone who speaks with controlled economy and someone who speaks with anxious abundance. The person who uses fewer words, who allows silence to exist comfortably between exchanges, who responds after a pause rather than immediately. That person controls the rhythm of the interaction. And whoever controls the rhythm controls the room. This is not a trick. This is not manipulation in the shallow sense of the word. This is the fundamental mechanics of human psychology operating exactly as they always have. When you speak less, others speak more. When others speak more, they reveal more. When they reveal more, you learn more. When you learn more, your next move is more precise. Silence is not just power. Silence is information warfare. Every moment you choose not to react, you are gathering intelligence. Every pause you allow, every question you do not answer immediately, every provocation you absorb without visible response, all of it is data. Data that the unrestrained person across from you is giving you freely because their discomfort with your silence is pushing them to fill it. And they will fill it. They will fill it with their anxieties, with their assumptions about what you are thinking, with their own projections and fears and interpretations. And in filling it, they will tell you everything you need to know about who they are and what they want and where they are vulnerable. This is the hidden economy of conversation. The one who speaks least often understands most. Power is quiet. Power is selective. Power is controlled. The powerful person does not compete to be heard. They do not fight for space in a conversation. They wait. They observe. And when they finally speak, when they finally choose to deploy their voice, every word lands with the weight of everything they chose not to say before it. That weight cannot be manufactured. It cannot be performed. It can only be earned through consistent, disciplined restraint, through the daily practice of choosing silence over the comfortable release of unfiltered expression. This is why powerful people are often described as difficult to read, why they are described as mysterious, magnetic, commanding. Not because they are extraordinary in some mystical sense, but because they have mastered something almost no one else practices: the absolute, unwavering control of what they allow to be seen. Become the person who cannot be read. Become the person whose silence creates questions. Become the person whose words carry weight because they are never wasted. This is where your power begins. When you go silent, truly, deliberately, powerfully silent, something begins to happen in the minds of those around you. It is invisible, it is automatic, and it is beyond their control. The human brain, at its core, is a pattern recognition machine. It scans every environment it enters, every interaction it engages in, searching for predictability, for confirmation, for the reassurance that comes from understanding what is happening and what will happen next. When you react, predictably, when you respond to every stimulus with an expected output, the brains around you relax. They have categorized you, they understand you. And what the brain understands, it no longer fears. What the brain no longer fears, it no longer respects at the deepest level. But when you go silent at the moment everyone expected you to speak, when you absorb a provocation with complete stillness, when you hold your expression neutral in a moment of high emotional charge, when you pause where others rush, the pattern breaks. And a broken pattern creates something extraordinary inside the human mind: uncertainty. And uncertainty is the beginning of psychological dominance. The moment someone is uncertain about you, they begin searching. They replay the interaction in their minds. They analyze your expression, your tone, your body language, your silence. They begin asking themselves questions they did not expect to ask. What did that silence mean? What are they thinking? Do they know something I do not? Are they angry? Are they indifferent? Are they planning something? This searching, this involuntary psychological audit that your silence triggered shifts the architecture of the interaction fundamentally. Before your silence, they were thinking about their agenda. After your silence, they are thinking about you. You have moved from being a participant in the interaction to being the subject of it without saying a single word. This is not hypothetical. This is not abstract. This is basic, documented human psychology operating in real time. The brain assigns significance to the unexplained. It gravitates toward what it cannot categorize. It obsesses over what it cannot predict. And a person who cannot be predicted cannot be controlled. The individual who responds to every provocation becomes predictable and therefore controllable. Push this button, get this reaction, trigger this insecurity, produce this behavior. Their response patterns become a map that anyone with patience can read and exploit. But the individual who receives provocations in silence, who absorbs challenges without visible reaction, who moves through high-tension interactions with complete emotional composure, that individual cannot be mapped, cannot be triggered reliably, cannot be controlled, and the people around them can feel that. They feel it as respect. They feel it as wariness. They feel it as a subtle but undeniable shift in the balance of the room. The silent, controlled individual holds psychological weight simply by virtue of being unreadable. This is the mechanism. This is how silence operates in the dark psychology of human interaction. It does not speak, and because it does not speak, it controls everything. Understanding the principle is the beginning. Practicing it is where transformation actually occurs. Because knowledge without application is nothing more than entertainment. You can understand every word of this and walk out of this room and react to the first provocation you encounter exactly as you always have, and nothing will change. The power of silence is not theoretical. It is behavioral. It is built through choices, specific, deliberate, sometimes deeply uncomfortable choices made in the exact moments when speaking feels most natural and most justified. Here is where it begins. You stop explaining yourself to people who are not entitled to your explanations. This is the first and perhaps most significant shift. The impulse to explain is powerful. It feels like transparency. It feels like respect. But in many situations, it is neither. It is anxiety. It is the deep discomfort of being misunderstood and the desperate attempt to correct that discomfort immediately. The powerful person tolerates being misunderstood. They do not scramble to correct every false perception. They allow others to draw their incomplete conclusions because they know that their actions over time will communicate more than any explanation ever could. You stop filling silences that are not yours to fill. When a conversation pauses, when a negotiation stalls, when a room goes quiet after something significant has been said, resist the impulse to speak. That silence has weight. That weight is doing something. Let it work. The person who breaks a productive silence first has just surrendered something. Do not let it be you. You stop reacting to provocations in real time. When someone challenges you, insults you, attempts to destabilize you emotionally, your first response should not be words. It should be stillness. It should be a pause that extends beyond what feels comfortable. A breath, a look, a beat of absolute quiet. Because that pause is communicating something that a heated response never could. It is communicating that you are not rattled, that you are not controlled by their actions, that you exist above the level of their provocation. You become selective with every word. You begin to treat your words as finite, as valuable, as resources to be deployed strategically rather than spent carelessly. You ask yourself, before you speak, does this serve me? Does this serve the interaction? Does this give something away that I should be keeping? If the answer is uncertain, you remain silent. You practice strategic withdrawal. In social situations where you would typically perform, where you would typically fill the air with your presence, your humor, your opinions, your energy, you pull back. You observe more than you participate. You speak less than you could. And you watch what that restraint does to the room. Watch how others become more curious about you when you give them less. Watch how your occasional words land harder precisely because of the space you created around them. This is how the discipline is built. Not in moments of calm, but in moments of pressure. Not when it is easy, but precisely when it is hardest. Every time you choose silence when speech was expected, you deposit something into your power, and that account compounds. There are forces that will resist this transformation. Some of them are external, some of them, the most dangerous ones, are internal. You must learn to identify both. The first external enemy is the provocateur. This is the individual who exists in almost every social and professional environment, the one whose currency is your reaction. They make statements designed to destabilize. They ask questions framed to expose vulnerability. They challenge in public, push in private, and manufacture situations specifically engineered to pull a response from you. Their entire leverage over you depends on your inability to remain still. The moment you stop reacting, you do not merely neutralize them, you reverse the dynamic completely. Their provocations, meeting only silence, begin to feel foolish. And nothing destroys a provocateur faster than the experience of their most calculated moves landing in absolute quiet. The second external enemy is the energy drainer. This is the individual who feeds on your emotional engagement, who requires your attention, your sympathy, your continuous response to maintain their sense of importance in your life. They are not necessarily malicious, but they are consumptive. And every unit of emotional energy you spend on them is a unit you cannot spend on your own development, your own strategy, your own growth. Silence, deployed selectively, is your most effective response to the energy drainer. Not cruelty, not rejection, controlled distance. The gradual withdrawal of the unlimited access they had come to expect. The third external enemy is the performer, the individual who needs an audience and has designated you as one. They fill every conversation with their own narrative. They monopolize attention. They interpret your silence as invitation to continue speaking, and your speech as invitation to redirect the conversation back to themselves. With the performer, silence is both protection and information. Your stillness reveals exactly what they are doing, even if they are not aware of it themselves. But then there are the internal enemies, and these are the ones that will test you most severely. The first internal enemy is the need for validation. The deep, almost biological human impulse to be understood, approved of, and confirmed by others. Every explanation you have ever given, when no explanation was required, came from this place. Every time you defended yourself to someone who had no right to judge you, this was its source. The discipline of silence requires you to confront this need directly. To sit with the discomfort of being misunderstood and choose not to correct it. This is not easy, but it is necessary. The second internal enemy is emotional urgency. The feeling that what you are experiencing right now, in this moment, must be expressed immediately, or it will somehow be lost or invalidated. This is the enemy of strategic timing. Emotion expressed at the moment of peak intensity is almost never deployed strategically. It is almost always the version of your emotion most likely to reveal your weaknesses and least likely to serve your purposes. Identify your enemies, internal and external. Name them and prepare. Your emotions will resist this. They will resist it with everything they have. Because the impulse to react, to speak, to express, these are not merely habits, they are physiological. When you are provoked, your nervous system activates. Your heart rate accelerates. Your body produces the chemistry of response. And your emotions will interpret your silence not as strategy but as suppression. They will push harder. They will demand release. This is the moment that determines everything. This is the moment where most people fail, not because they do not understand the principle, not because they lack intelligence or awareness, but because the physical experience of holding silence under pressure is genuinely uncomfortable. It requires tolerating a level of internal tension that the untrained mind will do almost anything to escape. And the escape is always words. The first step in developing this discipline is learning to recognize the physical sensation of the impulse before it becomes action. Before the words leave your mouth, there is a moment, a fraction of a moment, but a real one where you can observe the impulse, where you can feel the urgency rising and recognize it as a sensation rather than a command. This gap, this pause between stimulus and response, is where your power lies. And it can be trained. Begin small. In low-stakes conversations, practice holding a response for 3 seconds longer than feels natural. Let the silence exist. Feel its weight. Observe what happens in the other person. Observe what happens in yourself. Notice that the discomfort passes. Notice that the silence does not destroy anything. Notice that the other person fills it, and that what they say in that space is almost always more revealing than anything they said before it. Graduate to higher stakes situations as your tolerance develops. The principle of training applies What was once difficult becomes easier through repetition. The person who has held silence in 100 small moments will hold it far more naturally in the large one. And it is the large moments, the confrontation, the negotiation, the provocation at the worst possible time where this discipline will define your life. Emotional mastery is not the elimination of emotion. Do not confuse control with emptiness. The goal is not to become someone who does not feel. The goal is to become someone whose feelings do not govern their behavior without their permission. You feel the anger, you feel the hurt, you feel the defensive surge, and you choose, with complete awareness, what you will do with it. That choice is the definition of power, not the absence of feeling, the mastery of it. Build this mastery the way every real skill is built, through practice, through failure, through the honest assessment of when you lost control, and the deliberate decision to develop the muscle that will hold it next time. There is no shortcut. There is no single insight that produces this discipline instantly. There is only the daily choice, made again and again and again, in moments of pressure and comfort alike, to remain the author of your own expression. Make that choice enough times, and you will not need to think about it anymore. It will simply be who you are. You are not the same person who began this. Something has shifted. Perhaps you cannot name it precisely yet. Perhaps it feels subtle, a change in how you are thinking about conversations you have been in, a change in how you are thinking about conversations you are about to have, a new awareness of what you have been giving away, a new understanding of what you intend to protect. That shift is the beginning of something irreversible, because once you see this, you cannot unsee it. Once you understand what your silence is worth, you cannot return to spending it carelessly. Once you understand what your reactions reveal, you cannot return to reacting without awareness. Once you understand the mechanics of psychological presence, the way that restraint commands, the way that silence communicates, the way that stillness holds more authority than any performance, you are no longer operating on the level where you once were. You have moved. The person you are becoming does not need to announce themselves. They do not need to perform confidence or signal power or demonstrate control. They carry all of it in their bearing, in their stillness, in the quality of their attention, and the economy of their words. Others will notice before you do. You will find that conversations feel different, that people pause before challenging you in ways they did not pause before, that your presence in a room registers in ways it did not register before, that when you speak, the quality of attention around you is different, because people have learned, through experience, that your silence means something, which means your words mean even more. This is not ego. This is not arrogance. This is the natural, inevitable result of becoming someone who is genuinely difficult to read, genuinely in control of themselves, genuinely operating from a place of strategic awareness rather than reactive instinct. You see differently now. You see conversations as chess games rather than performances. You see provocations as tests rather than attacks. You see silence not as a gap to be filled, but as a tool to be wielded. You see every interaction as containing within it the possibility of either surrendering power or accumulating it, and you have become someone who chooses accumulation. You think differently now. Before speaking, you pause. Before reacting, you observe. Before expressing, you evaluate. Not slowly, not awkwardly, not in a way that is visible to others, but in the half-second that separates impulse from action. You are now running a calculation that most people do not know how to run. You operate differently now, with less noise and more precision, with less performance and more presence, with less explanation and more mystery, with less reaction and more strategy. You have become someone who cannot be easily controlled, not because you are invulnerable, but because you no longer hand your vulnerabilities to people who have not earned the right to know them. Not because you are without emotion, but because your emotions serve your strategy, rather than your emotions being the strategy. This is who you are now. Own it. Carry it. Do not explain it to anyone. From this moment forward, everything changes. Not tomorrow, not when conditions are perfect, not when you have practiced enough or read enough or prepared enough. Now, because the transformation does not happen in the preparation, it happens in the decision. The decision to carry yourself differently, to protect your silence the way you would protect something truly valuable because it is. The decision to let go of the need to be understood in every moment by every person. The decision to stop spending your reactions on people and situations that have not earned them. You no longer react impulsively. The impulse will come, it always comes, but it will meet a discipline that intercepts it before it becomes action. Before it becomes words you cannot take back. Before it becomes a reaction that hands someone else the blueprint of your interior. You act strategically. Every word is a choice. Every silence is a choice. Every response, every pause, every moment of stillness in the face of provocation, all of it is chosen, deliberately, by someone who understands the value of what they are doing. You protect your power, not aggressively, not defensively, but with the quiet, absolute certainty of someone who has understood something that most people never will. That power is not given. That power is not inherited. That power is accumulated slowly, invisibly, through thousands of small choices to remain controlled when the world expects you to be reactive. You protect your attention, because your attention is your currency, and you have stopped spending it on things that do not serve you, on people who do not deserve it, on provocations that are not worth your response. Your attention goes where it builds something, where it creates something, where it compounds into something greater than the moment. You protect your mind, because your mind is the source. Everything you have understood tonight, everything you are becoming, everything you will build from this point forward, it all begins there. And a mind that is disciplined, focused, and protected from the constant drain of unnecessary reaction is a mind capable of things that the undisciplined mind will never access. You understand what most never will, that the greatest power in any human interaction is not the power that speaks the loudest, or moves the fastest, or fights the hardest. It is the power that is still, that watches, that waits, that holds its silence like a weapon unsheathed, ready, devastating in its precision, and uses it only when the moment is exactly right. Machiavelli understood this 500 years ago. The rulers who endured were not the most expressive, they were the most controlled. Now you understand it. And that understanding changes everything. If this reached something in you, if you feel the weight of what you just heard, comment below. I am in control. And if you are serious about your own power, your own psychology, your own mastery, subscribe. Because this is only the beginning. There is far more to understand, far more to become, and those who stay will receive every piece of it. Subscribe, stay silent, stay powerful.